Mr. Murphy, whenever you are ready.
All right, I'd like to call to order this February 8th Committee of the Whole meeting for the Millburn School Board of Education. Roll call, please, Ron.
Mr. Coleman,
Present.
Mr. Gray,
Here.
Mr. Guziak,
Here.
Mrs. Ide,
Here.
Mr. Murphy,
Here.
Mr. Petteroni,
Pettorini here.
I'm sorry, Petterini,
That's okay.
and I'm sorry, Mr. Quiones.
Here.
All right, shall we do the Pledge of Allegiance? Or do you want to do the?
Let's do the oath of office.
All right, let's do the oath of office. Peter,
Right,
if you would
let's
like to.
I'd love to. All right. Anytime I'm ready, I think.
Anytime you are ready.
Do I do my hand on my heart?
You can.
Why not? I, Peter Pettorini, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Millburn School District, in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the law of the State of Illinois to the best of my ability. I further swear that I shall respect taxpayer interest by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets. I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board, while respecting the privacy of students and employees. I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting. I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels. As part of the Board of Education of Millburn School District, I shall accept the responsibility of my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district. I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Millburn School District. I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework. I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law. I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community school to advance the vision for Millburn School District. And I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
Congratulations.
Woohoo! Thank you.
Now an official school board member.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. Happy
Glad
to be
to
here.
have you. You're back to full strength. And as soon as we get the flag up, we will do the pledge. You stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and which stands one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Does anybody have any additions for the information and discussion items?
Just one really quick. If we could just add a brief discussion tonight about the staff appreciation event that usually takes place every year. I just wanted to get some information out about the retiring teachers this year and get people thinking for the retirement gift. Maybe we could get that approved at the next meeting.
Okay. Denise, do we have any comments from the public tonight? No, that's not.
No, we do not.
Hey, Brendan, I actually have a future agenda item.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, with the new members, it's probably pretty relevant, but I was hoping, Steve, we could schedule in the next couple of meetings an overview of the business office report, just so everybody is new, has a good understanding of it, and also I think myself and maybe others could use a refresher.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Information discussion. So we have the first reading of many board policies. Does anybody have any of these policies they'd like to pull out for specific discussion?
Brennan, I don't at this time, but I'll be doing a closer review and then just providing some feedback for a future meeting.
Okay. There are some interesting ones in here. Student discipline, police interviews. I hope that's not a thing that ever happens. But so please take a look at some of those. Make sure they meet what you think they should say. Okay. FOIA, the Illinois Retired Teachers Association, has requested records. Do you have any comments on that?
Nope.
They request it every year. Basically, they want to make sure that the retirees, the TRS retirees, the teacher retirees know about, they want to get members to join, and then they also want to make them aware of the dental insurance that's available through the Illinois Retired Teachers Association.
Anybody have comments on that one? Questions? All right. Moving on, remote learning update.
Okay, so we have, today was the most kids that we've had in school since last March, all at the same time. We had every grade level, at least about, on average, 70% of students in every grade level in person, with the exception of 7th grade. Because middle school, this was the first day where we had 2 grade levels in at the same time. We're trying to see how that goes and make sure that we have enough staff to manage that. And hopefully we can move to maybe 3 grade levels at a time after we go through this cycle, probably after spring break. So we're looking at that. And then we would have all students who chose in-person learning in person, with only a couple of exceptions of kids that may have moved in at the middle of the year and we didn't have enough room and spots for in-person learning. So it's going well. We had a classroom that was quarantined, one entire classroom, and they, I believe, are back today or tomorrow, so that they'll be starting back, and so we've got everybody back in business at school, and we're hoping that lasts for the remainder of the school year. Parents have asked a little bit about, when are we going to, if the teachers are all vaccinated, when are we going to go back to full-time regular school? Well, it's a little more complicated than that. That's not going to be a possibility this year. It's because of staffing and the way that it's set up for 6-foot distancing. We can't manage our cafeteria with 100 kids at a time, which was what we would need, at least 100 kids at a time. at 6 foot spacing. There's just not enough room in the cafeteria for kids to eat lunch here. So that's why we don't have lunch at our school now, and we didn't plan for lunch at the beginning of the school year, because we just couldn't get over that hurdle with the 6 foot requirements for distance. So until we get down to at least a 3 foot requirement, we will not be able to expand our schedule lengthwise. So currently kids are in school 5 days a week, which is excellent. As far as what we can do at Milburn, we can do a lot more than other school districts can, because we have the space and the staffing to do that. But to expand to that next level is going to take either a reduction in 6 foot spacing or staffing that's really not possible. So
Jason, is this approach, the half-day approach, consistent with what the other districts are doing as well?
no, we're doing more time in school than other districts.
Okay.
So other districts, because every district has their own parameters, I don't want to disparage them because they're not doing as much, or that's saying that we're doing everything so great, because we're doing the best we can. Other school districts are on an A-B schedule, so they have half the kids on Monday and Tuesday, then all the kids are remote on Wednesday, and then they have the other half of the kids on Thursday and Friday. So essentially they have in any given classroom in their school a third of the children in a class on Monday and Tuesday. A third of them are all remote all week, and a third of them again on the other third on Thursday and Friday. And they might be full day, and some of them are half days like ours, depending on how many kids choose to go in person.
Okay. But because they would have fewer students at any given time, they have the ability of doing full day, because then they can spread out.
Then they can get them in the lunchroom because there's fewer kids, right?
Okay.
Right. We have a big school. Elementary is a big elementary school, very large elementary school, so it's a lot to manage in the cafeteria.
Mm-hmm.
But our kids, I don't want to minimize this too much, but our kids are losing, they still have 4 hours of instruction. They're losing their lunch and recess time. They're losing some of their support time in the middle school study hall. Here it could be their RTI time or their SMORE time, which is an enrichment time. They're losing that time, and they're losing their specials. So PE and art and music are done at home outside of the school day. That's the difference. So we're still getting our reading, writing, math, science, and social studies in school, and the rest is at home. So we're doing more. There are very few school districts in the county that are doing five days for their students in person. Most of them are 2. Some are going to move to a 2-3 schedule. Some of them are 2 days, half days. Some of them, I don't know any that are 5 days, half day, where they would flip an A and a B morning and afternoon half. I think they're mostly Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday half. And even that is a half in some cases. It's complicated, and every school district has a little bit different nuance. So,
Okay.
So yeah, we're very fortunate that we can do as much time in school as we can. And to get to that next level, though, to expand the day, then you're talking about mixing groups in PE. So the kids would have, then you have 2 different classes going into PE. That's another spreader event. You have multiple whole grade levels going into the lunchroom. So if one child has COVID and could spread that, you're really increasing the risk of spread significantly in that case, especially if you can't keep them separate. Kids 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
So we'll work toward that. Hopefully by the fall we have a 3-foot rule is what we're hoping for next year. There's talk of continuing with masks to help manage the spread. There's just so many unknowns, and that's a long ways away in some aspects, and in some respects not very far away. So we're planning for next year. Right now we're planning for staffing, and so that gets a little tricky because if it's a 3-foot rule, the staffing can look significantly different than a 6-foot rule.
Right.
And we don't know how many parents will feel comfortable, how many kids will be vaccinated at the end of the year. Will parents be willing to send their kids back? Those that chose remote this year, will they be remote again next year, and how many, and all of that's going to be once again, lots of unknown, more unknowns than knowns at this point. But there are things that we do know. So on the vaccination front, I can share what's happening in Lake County. Milburn is part of a pod with the Lake County Health Department, where educators, whether you're a bus driver or a parapro or a teacher or administrator, we are all going to get vaccinated at Round Lake High School or Stevenson High School, 2 different locations. All we're waiting for is enough doses to come through from the county. We're ready to go. Round Lake has a great system set up. Stevenson has a great system set up. They started last week putting shots in arms of educators and did about 2,000 last week in 3 days at Round Lake High School. And we're only limited, and we couldn't do any more today. We can't do any more tomorrow because there's no more supply. So we're just waiting for supply, but the infrastructure is there to do it as soon as we get that those doses.
It was extremely efficient. I went and got mine done, and including the 15-minute wait time, I was done in 27 minutes from the time I walked in the door.
Oh, that's great.
So we're hoping that more vaccine gets released to the health department. There are other school districts that you've seen in the news that have gone with Walgreens and made arrangements with Walgreens. That is, none of those opportunities have presented themselves to Milburn, and that's fine. We will get our shots. We are in line. We're in queue to get going, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks, almost everybody in Milburn will have a chance to have their first dose. We're looking forward to that.
That's great.
Good. The dose that we're getting is Moderna, so it's 4 weeks before you can get your second booster shot. After the good thing about Moderna is after the first shot, it's 80% effective, and so we do get some immunity and some benefit right from the get-go, or at least after a couple of weeks of that first shot. So it's good, it's positive, it's moving forward, but it'll be not until after spring break where a majority of our staff will be vaccinated. And even once we're vaccinated, the recommendation, we're still going to wear masks, we're still going to have the 6-foot distance, but we will be in a much safer environment, and hopefully we'll be able to loosen some things up with some of our restrictions. So.
How's our staffing doing?
Pretty good right now. Right now we've made some good hires right after winter break. I sent a letter out right before winter break asking the community, hey, we need people to help, and people have really stepped up. Some of our parents who are interested in helping out, at least for the rest of this year, and so we've got a good group of hirees and people who know people who then said, hey, you should apply in Milburn, and we've got a good group. So we are still not fully staffed with our paraprofessionals, but we're pretty close. So that's been good. Substitutes, we have a few substitutes that are trained with all grade levels in. We're pushing it as far as our availability, and it only takes a couple of teachers to be exposed to COVID or to have COVID for us to really have a difficulty structuring that. At the middle school, we have the ability to do asynchronous classes once in a while. We're trying to stay away from that as much as possible. So if I'm a math teacher, I could say, okay, kids, I'm gonna be gone on Friday. I've got a doctor's appointment or something on Friday. So I'm gonna go to my doctor's appointment, but I'm gonna record myself ahead of time. Here's the lesson, here's the Zoom, you're on your own for that instruction. Not ideal, but in a pinch, that's what we can do at this time when especially when all the kids are remote.
Yeah.
If we have some kids in the class, like 6th and 8th grade are in school right now, so we've got some kids in class and some at home, what we would do is hire somebody to be in school, and then the teacher can still do, if they can present the lesson from home, they can still present the lesson. If they can record it ahead of time, then we can have a substitute record and manage that in class. And the kids at home, so it's a lot of different moving pieces, and we're still learning things as we go, trying to improve. But it's definitely a challenge.
Do we have any other questions? Okay. Moving on, closed session minutes.
So we have, the board members that were present today are getting their closed session minutes to review for the next board meeting. If you could either pick them up, or if you don't want to pick them up, I'm happy to drop them off in the next couple of days so you can review those. That would be great. Just let me know what you'd like to do.
2021-2022 calendar.
Okay, we had the copy of the calendar last time. We will approve it at the next meeting. I can shoot that out again on Friday. I think there's one adjustment that I messed up, and I have to look back. I had one of the holidays on the wrong day, President's Day or something, so it shouldn't be any major changes, but we'll get that out and get that approved at the next meeting. It can always be changed later, as we found out this year. The calendar can be changed a lot if necessary, unfortunately. But we try not to do that.
Registration fees and activity fees.
Just as a reminder, we had recommended that we hold flat registration fees and activity fees for next year. We don't want to increase those at this time. I don't think it would be good for our neighborhoods and communities to increase any fees when we're struggling in a pandemic. So that's our recommendation. If the board feels otherwise, we can certainly review that, but I think we'll be fine for another year. We have not raised the fees in the last 10 years. Some we've actually reduced.
Anybody have any questions on those? Board agreement.
Okay, I can pull up the board agreements just as a quick review. I thought we had more recent ones than that. believe these are the most recent. They've been updated in 2018 and can be reviewed regularly. I know there's been a couple of iterations in the past couple of years, but good to just review these, and if the board would like to make any changes, they certainly can. I'll just leave these up here for a second, and then if there's any questions, I'll keep scrolling down.
Just a general question, under what circumstances would a school board member visit a school as in the function of a school board member?
School board members are invited to come and look at a class. For example, if you wanted to see how our reading curriculum was working in 3rd grade, you say, I'd really like to watch a teacher teach our new reading curriculum in 3rd grade and see how that's working. You can do that and schedule an appointment.
That's great.
Or if you want to just take a general, we've had board members in the past, I think Denise, you've done this, and maybe some others who have just said, I just want to visit the school, walk around, maybe take a tour, because as board members, you might see your kid's room, but you don't get a whole perspective, or you don't have kids in the middle school yet maybe, and would like to see what's going on at the middle school, just get a sense of the building. You can do that. We'd be happy to show you around, and if you want to see something specific, you can see that.
Great.
So
Yeah, I've done a few. The first year when I was first elected to the board, I went just to get experience in classes other than my children's classes, just brief visits to see what was going on. And then I've also done visits where when we were looking at pilot curriculum and we were going to be making a vote to approve a piloted curriculum, it's nice to go in and see how it works and get feedback from the teachers and see what they think, and to see the kids' experiences with it.
That's great. Thank you.
That was excellent.
We may want to review the remote attendance one. Remote attendance shall be limited to only 3 meetings per year.
Oh,
There's got to be a pandemic clause there somewhere.
that was,
That was 2018, we never knew we'd be doing this. But even when things settle down, I think we might be able to be more flexible on that. Not that we want people to skip meetings. All right, so please, everyone, make sure you take some time in the next couple of weeks and read through these. And if you have any suggestions for changes or thoughts that you'd like to add or subtract, we can bring that up and discuss it in a future time. There's nothing else right at the moment. And Denise, you want to talk about your staff appreciation?
Yeah, that would be great. So for those of you that don't know, we, the administration and the Board of Education put together a staff appreciation celebration each year. Last year it was not really the same as what it usually is. And this year we're not sure how it's going to look or when it will be able to take place. But in the short term, we do have 4 teachers that will be retiring this year, and with the retirement, we give these retirees a gift. And last year, we came up with the idea of giving our retirees an iPad and kind of making that the standard gift that we would give our retirees since they're turning in their school iPads and computers, as a way to kind of encourage technology and keep in contact with them. And so this year we would like to do the same thing for those 4 retirees. And looking at the iPads, we're thinking it'll probably be about $300 per iPad that we'd be purchasing. So I just wanted to put that out there to get everybody thinking about it, and then we could approve the purchase for that maybe at the next meeting.
Also, I'd like to point out, Denise has been kind of our lead on staff connections, but she is retiring from the school board after this year, so if somebody would like to take the lead on that, it's nice to have a focal person to kind of run through all of these things and make sure we keep our teachers important and up front in our minds.
I can do it.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen.
So Denise, if you connect with Stephen and let him know all the things that you've done over the years, so he has an idea of what he's really getting himself into, because I know you do.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely, be happy to. Thank you, Stephen. Veronica and Mrs. Gedville are like the big helpers and facilitators of this event. So I'm so happy that you are taking this on, Stephen. But I will be happy to like touch base with you and kind of let you know what you've just agreed to.
Thank you both.
There's no backup.
No problem.
He gets a bonus. All right.
You said I get a raise?
Double your pay. 0 to 0.
This is recorded, right? Double my pay. I heard it.
From 0 to 0. I just want to make sure you know exactly how much you'll be getting. All right. On our future agenda items, we are looking forward to our fiscal year 20 audit, hopefully soon.
I have a draft right now that I'm reviewing, so hopefully very soon.
Awesome. That's always excitement. And Sean will have some comments on our press policy updates. We do want to talk about a system for, not a system, we have a system for purchases and contracts, but we're reviewing that and updating it. And we do need to sit down and talk about the board agreements and make sure they are up to date. It's been 2 years, so we want to talk about that. And we also have to do our self-governance, which we usually do probably right after the election. So, see that in April and May.
Sorry, the board self-governing goals, what are those exactly?
So, I don't know what the self-governing goals are, but what we've done in the past is work with someone coming from IASB. They can meet with us and they do what's called a starting right exercise with the board, and it's a 4-hour program where they talk about board roles and responsibilities, and then board members take a survey, and so you get different information, and then from there you can set board goals about how you want to operate it.
Okay. Yeah.
We do have an actual document too for the goals that we've set for ourselves.
For the district?
No, for the board.
Okay.
I can send.
Sorry, go ahead, Denise.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say it's in our in the BOE drive.
Okay.
But I could send that as well if it, just to make it easier to see and to find.
So I was actually looking at the future agenda items when the meeting started. So there's actually a future agenda item that I would like to add
Sure.
around discussing the timing for the district goals, the formulation of district goals. Not formulating the district goals, but just talking about what that timeline looks like to get them out a little bit earlier in the upcoming year.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, Denise, if you share that folder, because I don't see it right offhand. I know we have it somewhere. But, 'cause it's been a while since we've done something, and we were gonna do something last summer, and it kind of got thrown away because we couldn't meet. So, and phone system update, hopefully soon. Do we have anything new?
Hopefully, we've had 2 different water issues we've dealt with this month, so that's actually going to be a long process. It'll take a month or 2 to, once we actually start doing that, to contact companies and start getting pricing and try and compare apples and oranges and come up with what we think is a good recommendation based on what we need in the phone system. But just to kind of, for the new board members, as well as the old board members, the system at the elementary building is about 20 years old. It was put in when the 1999-2000 edition was added. And then in 2005, when the middle school was added, they have a different phone system and they are tied together, but not in the greatest manner. So what we're looking at is getting a new system to replace both systems. We're looking at not only physical, having something here in the building, but also looking at some cloud-based options as well. So, but basically, the system here at the elementary building is so old that we can't get new parts for it. We can only get refurbished or remanufactured parts for it. So it's getting to the point that when something breaks, we can't like just the next day have something here to replace it. So it is, kind of at that point that we do need to look at getting something different. We thought we had something, was it a year ago? And then all of a sudden the price shot up from, I think, was it 60,000, 80,000 we thought it was gonna be, to like 160,000.
Wow, what was the?
Well, we don't know, but that's why we kind of stopped at that point. Well, supposedly, there were things that were left off the original quote or whatever, but at that point in time, we didn't have enough funds in the correct account to actually pay for it. We're using life safety money for this. And the way it was written is that we couldn't use that money until all the other life safety items were completed. So as of last year, they were completed, but we only had about $80,000 left in that fund. And when that higher cost came in, then we had to delay looking at that. So we are in a position this year that we do have monies. A part of it, depending on if we end up going cloud-based, some of those costs won't be able to be paid out of life safety, but the equipment, the phones for the classroom and those kind of things can be paid out of that fund.
Makes sense.
Superintendent's report.
Well, as I said, we had the most grade levels in school today as we've had since March, which was very exciting and good to see, and I hope we keep that going and look forward to that. So other than that, everything's going well now that we've gone through the water crisis, we've gone through the flooding crisis, and that got fixed today with the new.
Not done yet, though.
Oh, it's not done
But I'll
yet?
go over. Well, the repairs are, but
oh, you're right.
there's no more flooding, but there's now repair of what was damaged.
Heater coil is replaced.
Yeah.
Now the flood
Tile
damage on the tiles will have, that'll be a longer term project. But so it feels like the building's functioning, which is good. We're crossing our fingers this week that the cold weather won't cause a pipe to break or something crazy that seems to happen when it gets this bitter cold for this long, so, we will keep our fingers crossed, but.
At both buildings, we already did adjust the HVAC system so that it'll maintain a constant temperature of around 68 instead of having the night setback that we typically have, just to avoid any more coils freezing or pipes freezing.
Right, we wanna keep the water,
You wanna keep that water moving and keep
Yeah.
it hot, because that's gonna be your best bet. The last, well, at least twice that I can remember, part of the problem we have is sometimes the damper will get stuck open, and if that does and it's windy, that's what's caused the coil to freeze and then burst, and then you have water all over.
It's a mess.
Yeah, it is.
And it's well water, right?
This building is well water.
Right.
There's 2 wells at this building. There's a well, the bad wells on the newer section, as Dr.
Yeah.
John was
Right.
saying earlier. And then there's a well for the original section of the building. And then the other school is on Lindenhurst water. It's in the Lindenhurst proper. So
Yeah.
But the water that runs through the HVAC system, it does come from the well, but then it goes into a closed system.
Yeah.
And then we do treat that chemically also to enhance the transmission of heat,
Yeah.
heat and cooling.
yeah, there's some sort of solution that goes in there. It's supposed to keep the system clean or something. Cause it's nasty water here.
Yeah.
But, I can say that the water that came out of the last coil was relatively clean
Yeah.
compared to what we saw 10 years ago when I first started here.
Yeah.
We didn't have changed types of treatments that we use
Yeah.
in water, et cetera, and it has helped.
It has helped.
I actually did have a quick question regarding those funds that we are going to get, the federal funds, I think, to help support remote learning.
Yeah.
Do we know, I think it was still up in the air how much we were expecting.
Was it 197,000-ish, almost 200,000.
And do we know when we're gonna get those funds?
Now, and the other question, the thing that's hanging out there, because it's a state-by-state decision, are they going to give us those monies and take away other monies? Or are those gonna be, additional monies in addition to what we normally would get, because the state's also got a financial crisis that they're dealing with? And we really, at this point, it looks as though we will get those as additional money, but, I have known at the last minute that all of a sudden they say, oh, there's no money, you're not gonna get the
Yeah,
rest of it.
don't count it yet.
We're gonna cut this we're gonna prorate something else. Hopefully they don't, but it's one of those that until they take action and do it, and they have not submitted anything to us unless you've seen something,
I've
Jason,
seen nothing.
as far as any kind of grant where we would actually apply for those dollars, where they would tell us exactly how much we're gonna get. The state can keep, I think, is it 10%? So we know how much they can keep, but they could keep less or they could keep,
And we had that earmarked, I can't recall, I don't have my notebook, but we had that earmarked for something, didn't we?
Not that one, not the 200,000. There's a 34,000 that we got before the school year started.
Yeah, and
That
we
was
got that
spent.
last spring, and that's already spent.
That's long gone.
Okay.
Yeah, technically, originally it had to be spent by December 31st, and I think this last CARES Act thing extended it through at least March, if not June.
So we've talked about 2 things maybe, board meetings. One would be air purifiers.
Air purifiers.
Is that what
Yeah,
you
I
were
think
thinking
that's
of?
it,
Okay.
yeah.
So when we purchased the air purifiers last time, we asked for $20,000, and we said we would use that grant money, or we could potentially use that grant
Right.
money.
And I've got it coded that way, as well as
Yeah.
the 10 we ordered prior to that, that was about $5,000.
And the rest of it, we haven't designated the whole, but we've talked about things like summer school. So do we do a jump start program for the kids in the fall? I think the challenge this year is going to be getting teachers motivated to teach after the school year. Right away, they're gonna need a little bit of break. They're kind of burned out right now and discouraged, but the kids certainly need it. So we're looking at different ideas about what we can do with that.
And it is kind of nice too, because those federal dollars go over 2 fiscal years. So we could either do something in June or we could do something in July or August as well.
Yeah, we have lots of different thoughts about it. You know, is it summer school program, part summer school program, after school program next year? Are kids gonna be interested in a longer school day for those who had trouble learning already? Are you gonna get more of the same, or can we restructure that differently? There's lots of ideas, no concrete plan at this point.
Okay.
I know one of the allowable expenses is actually providing additional instruction to those students who struggle during this time where things were remote.
Right.
So, you know, you're trying to target those kids that are most in need for those dollars.
Thank you, Dr. Lynn. Dr. Johns, do we have a business office?
Do you have a copy of what I emailed?
I don't know.
I can, want me to email it to you again? Okay, I just sent it to you.
It'll take a minute, apparently.
Yeah, it does. Even though we're in the same room, it still has to go the same journey as if you were somewhere else.
There it is. I'm gonna drop it down.
Okay.
There.
Okay, in the prior report, I had a timeline of everything up until February 2nd when they completed the connection, I believe, or most of it. But February 2nd, they completed the connection, but we still kept the boil order because the health department wanted to do another test and possibly 2 more. They did come do that test on February 3rd. February 4th, I got a call from the health department that they were very pleased with the results. There was nothing that showed up in the water, and they lifted the boil order effective the afternoon of February 4th. So, just to give you an idea, that water truck, I believe that holds about 5,000 gallons. And I know the first day we got water, we ended up with, I think they brought water from Aurora, and then they went to Lindenhurst and filled it up again, and we added 9,700 gallons to our tank because at that point it was dry. The one on the right is actually the drilling rig. That was actually what drilled the hole for the pipe to go through underground. They did it in 2 sections. They drilled on the west side of the building from where the new playground is, the newer one that we did, out into the grassy area between the building and the garden. And then they dug a hole there, and then they drilled another underneath the classrooms adjacent to the gymnasium into the boiler room and then up. And then you can see here they opened up the floor in the boiler room, and then the drawing on the right is them feeding the pipe back through to the connection at the out by the on the outside of the building, on the west side of the building. It was really interesting. In addition to the water pipe, we also fed through a electrical conduit that we aren't using currently, but if anything would ever happen, for instance, when we did some work on the east side of the building, at one point the wires to the to the pump from the water treatment system on the east side of the building was damaged, and that had to be dug up and repaired. This way, if we have a problem with the electrical line, we already have the conduit, we can just feed the wire through, and then we can be back in business. You know, if you're paying somebody to $28,000 to drill under the building, you might as
Mhm.
well have them
Oh, yeah.
pull two things instead of one. And Monday morning, I was on my way here and got a call from Jason that, how soon are you gonna be here? We got a problem. And so, basically, we had probably, what, an inch of water. I did have a really nice picture of the hallway, but it was covered in water, so looking at the photo, you couldn't really tell there was any water there. So that's kind of why I did these, because you can see dry floor versus wet floor.
And these are not currently being used?
No,
these
they're not.
classrooms?
We actually had, one of the rooms that was being used by the before and after school club, and they just shifted to another empty classroom.
We use this room as storage for curriculum materials. So it's like a book room.
Mhm.
And then the room on the right is a die cut room where it's a teacher work room where they come and make die cut letters and those kind of things. You know, years past it was used as, they all were used as classrooms, I believe.
Yep.
We have 6 rooms down there. All but one of them had water in it, but only the hallway and a couple of the classrooms had damage to the floor tiles, where they're starting to pop up. Basically, the ones that the water from the heating coil, as that hot water came out, that loosened the mastic on the tiles and popped those up, many of them. We are gonna have to have a company come in and test, in our asbestos plan, the mastic or the glue holding the tiles down is suspected to have asbestos in it. If it does, then there'll be a different method that we have to use to remove it than just going in and popping up the tiles. And then there's also some ceiling tiles that were damaged. The insurance is covering the cost of the coil, as well as any of the investigation that we've had the plumber do. We had, in addition to the coil, we also had an ice blockage in the drain that went out from the sump pump to the storm sewer in the parking lot. Even though we had heat tape in that line, it still wasn't enough to keep that from building up and blocking itself off. And then we also put some dye in one of the roof drains that runs underneath the floor in a hallway adjacent to this addition.
And this is all single claim?
All single claim, all on the same time. Now the last time we actually had a transfer station on the north side that had a problem, and the sump pump on the south side. But I think we had something similar. I think the sump pump failed, as well as having some ice blockage the last time. So we are gonna have to do more checking of that, and that was in 2017. So not real recent, but recent enough that, you know, we didn't wanna have to deal with it again.
Sure.
The heating coil is something we couldn't have avoided. That, you know, from time to time, those kind of things just happen. It doesn't happen very often. We've had 3 of those occur, 2 at this building and 1 at the middle school in the last 10 years. Property tax revenue, one of the things this year, because the county went to 4 payments, and it kind of lengthened the amount of time it would take for us to collect our property tax money, I've kind of been giving the board each month or each meeting kind of an update of where we are. We are supposed to receive 1 additional payment from the county. So at this point, to get the 99% tax collection we received last year, we'll need about another $140,000 in collection. If we want to get if we, you know, get 100% collection, it's about $295,000 that we're still short. But normally, Milburn gets between 98.5 and 99.7 or 99.8 collection. Last year we got 99% even. But that is something that we look at, and And in years where you would have a higher interest rate, the fact that property taxes were delayed means that we're losing out on interest. At this point in time, the interest rate's relatively low, so we're not losing as much, but we still are losing money that we could have received in interest.
What do you put in the budget, Steve?
Pardon?
What do you use in the budget for a collection rate? 99?
Actually, when I do the budget, I do 100%. So, you know, we're short that 300,000 at this point.
Yep. That's it?
But I do know that when I did the estimate for interest, I reduced it significantly from what we got last year.
Why do we use 100% in the budget if the assumption is never that we're going to get us 100% of the?
Well, we've gotten very close, and that's actually what the levy is. That's the money that we're promised. That's the money that's authorized by the county for us to collect. You know, I could use a different number, but that's typically what we've done, and it hasn't really, you know, we may get a little less there, but we get more somewhere else that we didn't anticipate. Yeah, the other relatively, I don't want to say relatively big, but item that we've dealt with both last spring as well as this year is our building rental dollars. With the exception of the Red Apple program here at the building, we're not getting any building rental revenue because we aren't renting out to groups because we don't want to have all those different people in the building, even if it's at night. Plus the fact that up until just very recently, we weren't allowed to have any. No one was allowed to have large groups meeting. Is it now 54? And that's just as of the last day or two, right?
Yep.
Yeah. That's basically it for what I've got now.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Johns. Board reports. Does anybody have a report for us? You guys act like you've been inside all week.
Cold out there.
It is cold. So that's it. Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thank you. You're welcome.